second G, God is glorious. So, we don't have to fear other people. Let's work backwards, my honors students. I don't have to fear other people. Why? Because God is glorious. So when we need to be accepted by other people, when we need to be validated by other people, when we need so desperately someone to like me, love me, accept me, and validate me, then this is going to be extreme, but I think this is true, we're controlled by them. We're controlled by them. Our attitudes, our moods, our emotions, our behaviors are controlled for them. And the Bible has a term for this. God describes this as a fear of man. A fear of man. And this is a common struggle, right? If you're a human being, this is a common struggle, and that is the desire for approval that can dominate our lives, and it leads to obsessive people-pleasing. I don't have a mind of my own. I don't make decisions on my own. Nothing kind of is processed in my own mind or life where I'm not thinking, is this going to please somebody? Or seeking validation, or desperately afraid of being criticized. So I can't reveal any weakness, I can't reveal any flaws, I can't reveal any failures. I have to fake it till I make it, because if I were to reveal any of that, if I were to live transparently in any way, I risk being criticized, and I can't possibly handle that. So that leads us, for the most part, that would lead most of us to say, I can't really share my faith. I can't tell anyone my faith story about who Jesus is and what he's done in my own life, because what if they reject that? What if they're not pleased by that? What if it's off-putting to somebody? So I could never take that risk. It also leads to hiding anything I'm struggling with, to project the image that I myself don't have anything wrong. I myself don't have any needs or weaknesses. So we hide our struggles to protect our own image. Or, in order to please people, we might make very unwise and unhealthy compromises. We know it's wrong, we know it's going to be unhealthy and hurtful, but we do it anyway, because if that means pleasing somebody, if it means pleasing my boss, pleasing my customer, pleasing my tax attorney, if it means pleasing somebody, I'm willing to cut corners and compromise because I'm desperately afraid of what they think of me. And in truth, only God is glorious enough to care what their opinion is. Only God is glorious enough. What does glory mean? It's a very difficult word to define, but think in terms of weightiness. Think in terms of brightness, infinite value and worth, supremely important and powerful, supremely excellent and beautiful, and on and on. And to deserve, he himself, because of this, is the only one who deserves our fear, our real concern over what someone thinks of us. Even God describes his own incomparable glory. God describes it. He puts in words to us his own incomparable glory when he says, to whom, question for you humans, to whom will you compare me? That's a rhetorical question, right? Who is my equal? Asks the Holy One. Look up into the heavens. Who created all the stars? He brings them out like an army, one after another, calling each star by name. Because of his great power and incomparable strength, not a single one is missing. It reminds me of one of my favorite little passages, and I think I like it a little bit because of the sarcasm. I don't know, maybe, but you remember when Job is whining and moaning and complaining? He's had such a tough time, and he really has. Genuinely, he's had a tough time. And then eventually, God lets him go on and on and on for chapters. He goes on uncomfortably long. If you're reading, you're like, oh, this is a lot of really, where's this going to land? Well, here's where it lands. Eventually, God's had enough. And I can imagine that what he's trying to communicate to Job is, Job, I'm glorious, supremely valuable and weighty, and I've heard enough. Question for you, Job. When I was separating the water from the land, I didn't see you anywhere. when I was dropping celestial, astronomical, astrological things, God knows all the words, I'm just learning. When I was putting these things in place in the universe, Job, one question, where were you? Who was there? And you can kind of feel the weight of the glory of God saying, I'm the only one, Job, who deserves your fear. I am the only one. There is not a human being on the planet that you should fear more than me, because no one is glorious like I am glorious. God's glory, his supreme value and worth, it's those things that make his opinion alone matter to you and matter to me. No one else's. And it frees us from the trap of overly obsessing what my parents think of me and what my kids think of me and what my neighbors think of me and what my boss thinks of me, what my siblings think of me, much less what strangers think of me. And it frees us from the trap of needing the approval of other people. You know, the author of Proverbs, he writes a proverb that I think will identify with you. He says, fearing people is a dangerous trap. It's a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety. Believing he's glorious brings safety. Responding only to him brings safety. Now, you know that Jesus lived free of the fear of man. That's how he was able to obey the Father all the way to execution on the cross. And his death and his resurrection were driven by love. He himself was driven by love, and it reveals that God's opinion of us is never going to change. It's eternal. It cost him his innocent son's life. And you compare that to the opinions of people. By the way, can you remember far enough back to high school, college, some of your social circles? Do you remember any of the people that controlled what you thought of yourself? That controlled what you did and how you thought and who you hung out with and who made you cry or not cry, and you just every now and then think to yourself, what was I thinking? Where are these people now? Why would I give someone that much control over myself? Human opinions are passing. They're just temporary, and they're just moving on. And only when we truly believe, only with real, genuine, heartfelt belief, believing in all the way down that God is glorious, can we be free, completely free from the bondage of living for someone else's approval. It's the only time it happens, when we get fully free to live for God's pleasure alone.